and welcome to Conversations with Agents of Change, the podcast where we sit down with people who are quietly and sometimes loudly reshaping systems, challenging norms, and creating more inclusive futures. I'm your host, Izchel Boyd, and today's conversation is one I've been really looking forward to because it touches something deeply personal, deeply political, and deeply human. How gender bias shows up in our homes, our schools, and our workplaces, and what it takes to undo it. My guest today is Virginia Méndez Mason. Virginia is a whole person, leadership coach, feminist author, public speaker, diversity, equity and inclusion trainer, and gender equality consultant. She's also the co-founder of The Feminist Shop, an ethical feminist brand and education hub, and author of bilingual children's books tackling gender stereotypes and consent, as well as the parenting guide Childhood Unlimited. With a background in corporate consulting, working with firms like Deloitte and PwC, and experience working with global organizations and schools, Virginia brings together systems thinking, lived experience, and bold compassion. Virginia, welcome to Conversations with Agents of Change. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to talking to you now publicly because we've been solving the world behind the podcast for a while.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to say publicly as well that I love your books.
Oh, thanks.
That's how I got to know about your work. Firstly, with Childhood Unlimited. And then after that, I bought a book for my children. And I absolutely adore them. Then I discovered you have plenty more things. So I love that part of your work. So, Virginia, I would love to start at the beginning, not with your CV and all the credentials, but your turning point. You had a very successful corporate career and you are a mother of two. And at some point, you made a conscious decision. This is what I need to do. You resurrected your skills towards social impact. So what was that moment or series of moments that you realized, I can't keep doing this in the same way?
I think my relationship with feminism and gender equality has been from hating it. I used to think like, oh, I don't need that. We're not victim of anything. I don't need anybody to save me. All of those kind of ideas that sometimes we have about what feminist or gender equality is. And then I think the more you learn, the more you care, and the more you care, the more you need to know. And I think you get into kind of this cycle of understanding how much it touches everything. My husband sometimes he laughs and says, Virginia, you're making everything about feminists. It's like everything is about feminists when you look, if you look the right way, everything it's about social justice. I think it got a point in which that passion became so much of who I was that I needed to do more. And I think especially when you have kids, suddenly the urgency of changing the world is like, it needs to be now, like we're already arriving late. So I think the parenting lens gave me more urgency and more desire to do something that I was proud of and that I thought it could have an impact. Like when my kids come back and tell me, what were you doing? Like, let me show you. This is all I was doing back then. I think it was one of those things that there's not an exact moment, but there was a mix of these. And also it has pivoted a lot. I think originally it was like, okay, I want to write the children's book. Then my husband and I co-created the Feminist Shop and we wanted to have lots of content and lots of books and ethical product and give back and make it a bit of a community. And then people start asking me to do talks and training. Then I got the book deal to write the parenting book. So I think I've been always following the joy and the anger and see where it brings me. And the latest thing I've done is training as a coach, because as much as I love the whole system conversation, which is my happy place, I see an opportunity and I see a need to empower the individuals as well. How can we have these conversations in which we bridge the individuals with the systems and maximize the impact?
Absolutely. It sounds amazing because I think, as you well said, it's very needed. And I feel that many people feel that tension between the people's values or your own values and the system, but not everybody takes the courage to act on them. So I think that's something that I'm really proud of you for doing it. I mean, I've had this ideas myself when my children go to school, or you see other children, or even being a girl when I was a girl. I felt that there were so many injustices, but I didn't necessarily say anything about it. And it was hard for me to see those injustices to be there and continue to be there. I know that it takes a lot of courage to do that. So what do you think it gives you the confidence or maybe that urgency? Obviously, your children, but is there something else that you say it's not just about writing the book, but actually this is going to be my life's work?
I think that a lot of it's personality, and I think we all fight in very different ways. I love writing. I love speaking. I mean, I light up whenever that's the kind of work that makes me feel like, okay, my skills, the things that I enjoy doing, they're actually used for something that I deeply believe in. So I am very lucky that those two merge for me. But I also feel, and I learned from working with a lot of people, that we don't all need to be these. There's a lot of ways to be courageous. There's a lot of way to change things, and they don't have to come hard. And I think sometimes for people, they feel like, oh, well, because I cannot be an activist, because I would never like to be delivering a speech in a demonstration or wherever it is, that it's like, that's never going to be me, then I won't do anything. And it's the opposite. It's in the small things as well. It's in those permission, it's in the change of mindset, in the words that we use when we talk to our kids, and the intentionality. And sometimes people just don't know better. And the changes feel like, oh, if I want to do this, it's going to require a lot of energy. And sometimes it just requires to know. Because once you see it, it's like, I don't need this, or I don't want that. I find that a lot with parenting. I think sometimes equipping the parents and showing them, look, this is nonsense, this is what's happening, it just clicks something, and then acting on it becomes easy because kissing the puppet, you're no longer scared, or you're no longer buying into the narrative. So I just think activist looks very different. I am very, very privileged that I can work on something that I love. But again, I think everybody can add those values and that knowledge and that interest into their daily life in a way that feels true to them.
Yeah. I love that, because when I was reading your book, The Childhood Unlimited, I found that it was very helpful from different point of view. But I just, for people who maybe haven't read the book or haven't even heard about the book, can you share with us like some kind of everyday examples of gender stereotypes?
So I wanted the book to be a permission slip and a conversation with parents. I think parents have enough of, you have to, you should, you're doing this. I think it's heavy. Parenting, it's heavy. So it explores different topics, explores neuroplasticity and the science behind the stereotypes, because it's important that they understand what is happening, why is this matter. But the way I approached it was looking at different parts that shape the experience of being a person in the world for a child. So the books we read, the media, the language, the clothes, all of the different aspects, and then understand what was happening behind. So who is the main character and who is the supporter character? Which roles the people have in the books we read? How do we dress the kids with not only the colors, but what?
But it's accessible for them in the shops as well.
Yes, and the messages in the t-shirts, but also, are the clothes designed to be warm and comfortable, or are the clothes designed to be just pretty? And the things that we celebrate, the language we use, how many times we say be careful to a girl versus the times we say to a boy. So all those things that feel very small, the toys and the skills that those toys develop. So all of those small things, they pile up really quickly. And because the message they send is over and over, for me, the key was trying to break it's just natural. Oh, the girls just naturally chose all these things. And it's understanding we as a society are pushing these things into girls and into boys. And those are the consequences. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Because
Stereotypes.
you're going to choose something that you don't know there's there available to you. So you can only choose what is there.
And also because kids understand very well marketing cues, and they understand belonging, and they understand social rules. So for a kid, what is most important is to be part of the group and to feel like there's a belonging. And there is such a social penalty from very early stages to draw outside the borders. So, and in this case, mostly for boys. So the way we stop boys from playing with different toys or wearing different things because we feel like, oh no, that's not for you. Those strong boundaries about this is what being a boy is, this is what boys do, this is how boys feel. It very soon create a narrative of, okay, this is how I am in the world. This is how the world sees me. This is what the world expects from me. So we are leaving so many skills in the table for everyone. And sometimes we talk about gender and it feels that we are talking only about, be more fair to women and girls, which 100% we are. And all the data says that this is a very important conversation. But it is also about the way we're failing boys and men and the way they become part of the problem. Like it's a very vicious circle. I think the way I say I have a boy and a girl, and for me it's like there's nothing I want for one that I don't want for the other. There's no one skill. So I want them both to be smart and responsible and confident and independent and funny and happy. And there's nothing that I feel like, oh, I want that for Eric, but I would not want that for Nora, or the opposite, which means that in order to achieve that for both of them, I need to understand what is the society taking away from them so I can make sure that intentionally I cover that part, right? Strip out some of the limitations that the world tell them. And it's my role once I see it to tell them, hey, look, let's critically think, let's role model something different. Let's create a reality where you can have all of these or where you can be who you truly are.
Absolutely. And as a mom of two boys with very different personalities, I found that particularly that those conversations we have in your several books, I have found that age appropriate language for my children, that I didn't know how to explain things that to me were obvious. And whenever I found society show things in a way, like for example, when my youngest had access to baby dolls in nursery, and it was completely normal and understood that they were toys and they were nurturing and looking for, they were looking after a baby and such and such. As soon as they reach primary school age, that is like, you're never going to touch a doll again. It's like, why not? Like, I mean, there's so many other things, like, again, as you mentioned, even the clothes they choose or the characters they should choose, that creates in them some confusion because they feel sometimes that they cannot be themselves. And if the parent cannot help them through that and say, like, well, you can wear whatever you want as long as it's clean and it's not broken and, it's covering your body, it's fine. I mean, it's our responsibility as grown-ups, not just parents, but all the grown-ups around to say, look, we are looking after these children. And I believe that the only way we are going to do that is through knowledge and understanding. And that's why I believe your book is so relevant, and not just parents, but in general, like all people should, because we as grown-ups, we should be responsible for all childhood.
But also because we were all children.
Absolutely.
And I think for me was very fun giving permission to parents through the book, as in like, because a lot of the things we have to do is role model.
Yeah.
And if we are so stuck about what gender tell us that we need to be, if we are all carrying ourselves, oh no, I cannot do this, I should be this, then our kids are gonna see that. And we are all society, we are all part. And as you said, it's not just the parents, but we cannot do better if we don't know better. If we're never stopping to think, where is this coming from? Is this mine? Or is this helpful? Is this really a choice?
Yeah.
Then we cannot pass it. And sometimes we tell kids that they cannot do them because that's the way it's always done, or because we think we're protecting them, not because we're scared about a change of status quo, or we don't want other kids to make fun of them, so we stop them from doing things because
it's harmful, because it's not their fear, it's our fear. I mean, I don't want you to do such and such because you'll be bullied. It's like, well, he might not be or she might not be, but it's my fear, and you're passing on that fear to them as well.
Oh yeah, and you are, and a lot of the time we don't even explain that. Like I remember Eric used to love pink because my hair is pink. So he was buying shoes, and I was telling him like I have no problem for you buying these shoes. I just want you to know, like, that maybe some kids in your class will say something. And again, that was more preparing him, and again telling him, that's fine. You don't have to stop doing things that you want to do because other people. I just want you to know, because you know that some people still believe that pink. So he has all this language and all these conversations. And I remember one person laughed at him and he said, I was like, oh, how are you feeling? And he's like, oh, I'm sad for them because they don't know that pink is for everyone.
Oh, so
and
proud,
upload
proud, mama proud.
and again, even being able to bring that compassion to them, but like some kids really don't know. Kids don't know sometimes that pink is for everyone, and the kids are just passing an information that is completely absurd and arbitrary, and they believe that it's true. So being able to have that critical thinking in our lives, in our workplaces, in our parenting, in our friendships, and model that for other people. I think it's very refreshing sometimes. Every time we do something and we said like, that doesn't make any sense. It's the permission we give to all those around us to question it as well.
Absolutely. And to bring conversations that people would haven't
it wouldn't cross their minds.
No, because at the end of the day, there was something that it wasn't not in their scope of view. And whenever you bring these conversations, people think like, okay, so what is it so wrong that a child chooses wear a princess dress or, Mario, or it's a costume. So what do you care?
What are you scared of? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Where is this coming from? And it's that questioning. Like I remember, so I'm Spanish, as you can tell from the accent, but I remember whenever we were living there, my now husband and he was very shocked because in Spain, all the girls get their ears pierced when they're babies.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, Virginia, it's so strange. Because I've always lived like that, I've never, ever once considered like it's just normal. And he said it, I was like, I don't know what you mean. Like, it's just, and then he was like, I need you to stop, Virginia, and think, like, is it normal to pierce a baby to be more beautiful just because it's a girl? And I was like, it's not normal.
Yeah.
But if I had never had somebody coming from outside to challenge that,
of course,
I would have never questioned it because it was just a dumb thing.
Mm-hmm.
So being open to be challenged,
Yes,
and how we can challenge each other from a compassionate and understanding way. I think the problem with these conversations is that sometimes people get very defensive.
Mm-hmm.
People feel, even let's say in this conversation, I know that whenever I had this conversation, some members of my family felt attacked because, oh, well, we've done it to our kids. And then they feel because they've done it, then they feel like they had a need to defend it, how that was the right choice. And sometimes it's like, oh, I did what I thought it was best. And now that I hear another point of view, I understand. So how can we have this kind of growth mindset in which we accept that traditions and the way we've done things in the past, even with the best intentions, might be outdated, and we can imagine and we can aspire for a broader and more fair society without feeling like that's an attack on us, on who we are, who we were, just that, we know better, we do better, we keep growing, we keep learning, listening to each other and moving forward.
Absolutely. And it just makes me think, I know what type of response I had with that book and the people I know that I've recommended the book. But you as an author, what is the response you've got from parents and carers and educators as well?
Well, very mixed. I mean, in general, people really like it. And I think people, when they read it, they love it. I feel like, and it's always very satisfying as an author, especially because it's a topic very close to my heart and I use my life examples. Whenever people tell me like, oh, this impacted, or this is how I changed my parenting, or oh, that happened to me, like all those conversations are worth everything. But a lot of people get scared before reading it. I think with this topic, there is a fear. So I've got really aggressive even answers about me writing these books or about me promoting these books because I have an agenda and I'm trying to push my ideology on the children, and which is like, I generally believe that if we sit and have a conversation, there's nothing. I mean, we would not maybe agree on everything, but we can see the humanity and the intent, and the fundamentals. And there's a lot of gray, and there's things that you will be like, look, I would never let my son wear a dress, and that's fine. Like you don't have to. But I think there is a lot of space for mutual understanding. But in these kind of topics, people sometimes, before reading it, before knowing, they just get really defensive. So I have got a lot of pushback, or also people get very personal. I think if you're going to be working in this sphere, you need to have thick skin because sometimes people get very bad. And I don't care, as in, I know my husband or my friends sometimes are like, oh, are you worried that somebody's saying that? For example, if I write an article on press that it's bigger, some of the comments are like, well, rude or personal, but
But it's probably that resilience and compassionate understanding for others that you're modeling to your children that you have for yourself.
Oh yeah,
which is very healthy, I suppose. It's true role modeling when you leave that yourself. It's like, well, you're entitled to your opinion. That won't change the fact that I believe this is the right thing to do.
Also, I feel sometimes sorry. Like if there's a man in York that thinks that the best thing to do on his Saturday is commenting on how ugly or how beautiful I am, I feel more sorry for him than for me. Like, it's like, people, are you going to reply like, no, I don't have time. There's a world to change out there. There's lots of things to do. So how do we use our energy whenever we speak about topics that sometimes are defensive? And how we focus on the people that do want to have the conversation. There's always going to be people that do not want to have the conversation. That's fine. It cannot be our job to fix everything. It's about how we equip, inspire, help, and grow with the people that are in that same journey with us.
Absolutely. And I think that's very relevant because you don't know what you're looking until you know what you're looking for. And when you're looking for it, then there's a bunch of resources there. I found in the feminist shop, I found it really, really exciting because I was looking for those like in a separate place. I was like, I wonder how could I find such and such. And then finding that in a hub, it just was very helpful. But I didn't know I was looking for that specific topic until I started looking for it. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But I wanted to go back to a little bit of the gender bias. So yes, of course, I got to know your work through my own children and my parenting journey, and especially with one of my kids being very atypical in many ways. So to me, that was something I didn't know how to deal with. So I found a lot of resources within your blog posts and the books and whatnot. So I think that is something that could be really welcome in schools because it's not just the parents who have this responsibility, but also as educators. I believe that is an important role that we have to help children understand differences and similarities and say with compassion, like, everybody has a choice and they choose to wear certain color or certain costume. And one of the things that I really love about the conversation we have within your book is that you point out that parenting is not about being perfect. It's about building, it's about bringing awareness, about knowing yourself a bit and how you're going to respond. Are you going to respond from your own experience, from your own, like, my mommy told me, my grandparents, or you're going to stop and say, okay, be critical about this. Is that what you really want to pass on? So I really love that. And I love the way you actually give us permission to do things differently through your book. So I know that on the other hand, you have been working with big companies and public institutions, delivering workshops on gender bias and sexism at work and at home. And often these organizations want a checklist solution. So there would be a policing or a training or a statement from your experience, what actually creates a change within the organization.
I think that the questions that I get asked the most is the how-tos. How do I talk to my mother-in-law? How do we change the company culture or something? And I say, well, I don't know because I don't know your company specifically. I don't know your school. And I believe that although there's a lot of things in common, there's a lot of things that are very specific. For example, in companies, the flavor of sexes tends to be very different. Sometimes companies have like a very sexualized, let's say, there's conversations that women feel uncomfortable in, they feel very judged, very objectified. There's companies that women feel very much like supporter roles, their voices are not equally heard, they're expected to take notes. There's a lot of different examples of what transpire in the company, and the how will be very specific for that. But for me is the why, I think. And that's what I always come back to people. There's a million hows, and it will be very specific for you. But what we need to ask, the first question that we need to ask ourselves is like, why this matters. Why it matters that your school understand and is supportive with children, and it creates that open space. Why it matters that you do things that feel a bit uncomfortable in your parents. And, why are we doing this? Why are we talking with our mother-in-law and tell her, can you please stop telling the kids, please? Or why in your company you need to accelerate certain voices. And there's a lot of reasons why, and it resonates very different, and that's why the storytelling matters. There's loads of business cases about why diverse companies generate more money, and that will be a lot of whys for a lot of people. A lot of people say the reason why I want to have more diversity and retain women talent in my company is because it is proven that they deliver more value, there's more profitability, there is a different relationship with risk, whatever it is. I believe my why is different, is beyond the profitability, and I love when people buy into that storytelling about our capacity to be part of the change. What is that we are going to make the world a little bit better than how we found it? What is our impact, and how fulfilling it is to be able to make a difference? And it doesn't have to be a global difference. You don't have to be personally responsible to change the whole world. But how do we tap into my why every day is because I want to have a positive impact, because I want the people that come in my journey to be more equipped or be the ripple effect that it will create. I want them to also pass this message to other people. So I think tapping in our whys as companies or as schools or as parents or as individuals is the first step to figure out then how to do it in a much more effective way. And that can be very different for different people.
Absolutely. And when you say that, I see very clearly how you lead with. You're a leader that is very whole, like a whole person. That is not just about there's the answer, but it's let's think about it. Let's go deeper. Let's try to understand the whys, but not only for you, but for the community, the organization, the society, or whatever it might be. And why is it relevant in time as well? Because previous generations had this and that. And what are the newer generations will have? So it's our responsibility. So that just shows me this holistic, I suppose, way to see things that make sense to me. And I think that in many cases, you probably face a lot of discomfort in terms of when you have conversations with different people. How do you work with that without shutting down?
Oh, I love discomfort. I think the magic happens always. Like if something is very comfortable, then are you even doing anything? I think there's something about that relational piece as well. And I bring that approach whenever I work with leaders in companies. Sometimes we need to have uncomfortable conversations, or whenever I'm dealing with one-to-one coaching clients, you need to feel safe that I can handle discomfort. I am okay with you in discomfort in a non-judgmental way, in a very compassionate way. We need to be uncomfortable. Sometimes understanding how we've been failed by a system, it's uncomfortable. Understanding how we are perpetuating harmful things for others, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Realizing that we've been pursuing a dream that it wasn't really our dream, but it was like a capitalistic idea of what we should want rather than what we really want, it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And growth always is. So I think if I go to work with you and you're not very uncomfortable, I'm doing something wrong. But it's about how we trust each other. How do we trust, and how do we accept and understand the importance of that space as well? How we are comfortable in together dealing with that, and it's fine, and that reassurance, and it's a journey. Some people feel really challenged and they will just shut it off and be like, this is not a conversation that I want to have, or this is not a place where I want to go, and that is on them. Again, I cannot be made responsible. That's your choices. But I'm always excited about people that are willing to put themselves in those places, because I know that the biggest growth I've had, it's been in those moments. That learning to be accountable, learning to be responsible, learning about our own privilege and how we take it for granted.
And the responsibility that comes with having that privilege.
100%. And it's much easier not to look at our privilege than looking at our privilege and understand what should I do with it. And especially because we don't ask for a lot of our privilege. It just happens in society, but it doesn't mean that because we have it, we don't have to be aware and responsible with it. And again, and every person is different, which makes it even more special. Like, how do we navigate that relation? Or every company that are in a transition practice and they're deeply interested on like, okay, what have we been doing and how do we want to do it different? Why do we want to be different? Who do we want to be? What is our legacy? How do we want the people that work for us feel? How do we want them to go whenever they leave the door? How do we want the impact of working with us reflect the wider society? All of those questions that are a bit difficult, but also a bit exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say that, it just brings one word in my head because it's a very powerful part of your work, which is consent. And I would have always thought that consent was only for grown-ups, for in a very intimate way, or I always thought that it was just that. I think it's very common that it's misunderstood. And it doesn't only apply to adults in sexual relationships. So how do you explain consent to children in an age-appropriate way, but that is meaningful as well?
Yeah, I love consent. I think it's key. And it's one of those topics that people sometimes feel like when my son is 15, I will sit with him and tell him, you need to ask for consent, or no means no. But consent is something we need to model first, even before we start talking with it with kids. We can model it for them. Some of the very easy examples and ways to do it is with tickling. Like if you're tickling your kids when they're small and they're like, no, stop it. And then you stop. And I always made a point of like raising my hands, look, you said stop and I've stopped. And then 2 seconds later, they're like, again. And then you tickle and stop. And then for them to understand that they have autonomy to stop and the power and feel empowered to say no. But also whenever they're doing something to you and you're like, a stop, and they're not a stopping, and you're like, look, I don't want you to do this. It's very important that you understand. Because whenever we think about consent, we bring it to big sexual topics. And again, so important to understand that. But consent is in every day. Sometimes it's with things. I find like, sometimes when people say like the sharing is caring, I'm always like, sharing is overrated. Consent is more important than sharing. So even things like that, like we have this tendency of our kid is have something and somebody else want it. And we're like, oh, give it to him. He wants it. It's like, no, it's okay for you to say, look, I'm playing with it. When I finish, you can have a go. Rather than tell them that, you have to always take away things from you and give it to others. But also for kids to accept that I want that. Well, they're still playing with them. Whenever they finish, you can have it. So equip children to take a no. Accept no. No is a normal answer to have, and it is nobody's responsibility to make us happy through a yes, but also to say no in a nice way. Like no doesn't have to be scary. I can love you very much and still don't want to share these with you because I don't want to, because I'm playing with it as well, and I also love myself.
And that's a very important skill to have, especially growing up, because we are going to face no's throughout our lifetime. So the sooner you learn to deal with that rejection or just a simple no, the better you get when you're older and you're more mature, because you don't struggle with that anymore or as much.
And again, it is uncomfortable to be told no, and you do feel a bit rejected. And sometimes you really, really want to play with that toy right now, and somebody else have it, and you really want it. And it's okay. Like frustration is a normal feeling. And as parents, sometimes I think our tendency is trying to take away all of the difficult feelings from our kids. But yeah, you're never gonna do that in the real life. Also, it's not healthy. We need rounded children that accept no's and are frustrated and are sad. And I'm sad sometimes when I want something and I don't get it. But how do we accompany them through those hard feelings without having to fix it for them or without having others to fix it for them? But also, how do we let children to stand on their own feet and say no and respect themselves? Because I don't know any adult that don't know how to share. All of the adults I know how to share because society is very strong on that. But I know a lot of adults that don't know how to say no. I know a lot of adults that have very shaky boundaries, that they feel like, oh, if I really love this person, I should do all of those things for them at my own expense. People that are burnt out, full of resentment, and affecting the relationship with themselves. But that starts from the very beginning and with your parents like, oh no, don't be selfish, give this to them. So how do we build the adults we want to see into the way we educate our children?
And that phrase just triggers something in my head. How dangerous are those labels that we put into people? You're lazy, you're selfish, you are rude. And they mark us.
Oh yeah.
And you grow up believing, oh, I'm selfish because I didn't share, or because I said no.
We overcompensate.
Or I'm a bossy girl. You know, those things that really harm you.
And those, a lot of them are very gendered.
Yeah.
As in, women tend to be told, you're bossy.
When I was
children, but especially as children.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a bossy bitch. And it starts so early. And Google was showing that, for example, parents research, it's my daughter fat, twice as mad, and then it's my son gifted. So we do have those, that's Google research.
Yeah.
We have already ideas, or even the moment you have a scan and it's like, oh, it's going to be a girl, and they're like, oh my God, girls are teenager years, be careful. Oh, boys are, you know, we are like, the person is not even born and we've already put a rucksack full of expectation and ideas and stereotypes, and then whenever they don't match what we expect them to be, we try to correct them. And again, you're lazy. If I expect you to be like a calm or, you know, more mellow kind of girl and you're not, then you're bossy. If you are a boy and I expect you to be very sporty and you're not, then you're this, like you're wrong. And we put those labels. And then as adults, ask me how much in therapy I have spent figuring all this out. But how much we are unpacking, like, oh yeah, my family had this idea about me. Oh yeah, I was told that. Or there is this narrative in the school about this, and how have I carried this? And how that shapes, why do I overcompensate? Why do I over-explain myself? Because I don't want people to perceive that of me. So I feel like I have to go the other way. So it's all those things that they feel like, oh, just wise up. It's just like a thing. But it's like, it's not wise up, because if it was one,
yeah,
that'll be fine.
but it's been throughout your life.
But it's everywhere. And again, like, I know whenever somebody, if I see a t-shirt or a car or something, and people are like, oh my God, Virginia, it's just a t-shirt. But it's like, oh, if it was just a t-shirt, I would not have written a book about it, because it's not one t-shirt. It's all of the t-shirts and all of the books and all of the media and all of the, not all, but like a lot of it.
Absolutely.
It's the whole, is the same idea perpetuated over and over and over everywhere around us, to the point that it feels true. Because if it's everywhere, and it must be true, it must be that naturally girls are these, it must be that naturally boys are these, it just, maybe it's just what it is. So being able to challenge that and be like, no, it's not what it is. And we can just scratch that and look behind and things. And again, understand the impact of those labels, those little things, those narratives, and how they become a thing farther on. And it requires a lot of unlearning and a lot of therapies.
And you know, I think it's a very important thing that we acknowledge that we need to work in ourselves to understand ourselves, regardless if you have children or not. But importantly, if you have children, because you might pass on those wounds inadvertently to your children. So there's a lot of work to do and to be part of the society as well.
And I know that, for example, I'll be passing things to my kids that I don't know better. But the ones that I do know better, those are the ones that I can be intentional. I know they'll come back to me whenever, I don't know, they're older and be like, Mom, I can't believe you, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, you're right. I can't believe now that you say it, it's so very obvious. But at the moment, I didn't even question it. So again, as parents, sometimes we try to get everything perfect. So accepting that your kids will come back to you and be like, I can't believe you did that, comes with the job. But the ones that we are aware, the ones that require just a bit of understanding, like, oh, what a gift for everybody if you can.
Absolutely. And you know, I think that is a very radical act to be talking about this, and and how we can bring that freedom to our children to have their own sense of bodily autonomy and say, this is my body and I don't want my hair short. They can choose. I'm not cold. I want to wear shorts. I don't want to wear shoes when I'm in the house. Things like that they are conscious of their own body and say, this is what I want. So it is so powerful for me to see that we are allowing them to see that and to be free to do that, whereas maybe our generation couldn't do that because you need to wear a jumper. But I'm not cold. Just take a jumper with it. Right. Okay. And things like that.
And it's very interesting, the one about cold, because 100%, and it's the overcompensating as well. Like, no, mom, you are cold. I'm not cold. You are cold. So what are you trying to fix? It made me you wear a jumper, because sometimes when we are warm ourselves, we're not thinking about it. But whenever we have a feeling, sometimes what we try to do is compensate our own feelings through our kids. And what we're passing is like, I know better than you about your body. So I think letting them empower them. And realistically, a kid that is cold is just cold. It's fine. Like it's not the end of the world. Like a boy with long hair, all of those things are just not big deals. But what are we passing? What fears of ours were scarcity mind? Like what feelings and emotions we have, we're trying to correct in them at the expense of them trusting their own. But yeah, that empowerment of letting them be, and us being like, okay, I believe you when you say that you're not cold. I believe you when
I had enough food because previously we would have, you have to eat that all, and children would be sitting there for hours. Like, you need to finish that plate.
You're not moving until you finish that.
And to be fair, like when you go to any restaurant, the portions are just huge. Especially for children, when you think about their stomach, it's just like, it doesn't make sense. So the fact that we can learn to listen to our own children, say, okay, did you have enough? Or I want to pick, you have to eat vegetables. Which vegetables are you going to eat from this variety? Choose from here. Give them that choice, I suppose, within healthy boundaries, and say, like, yes, you need to eat vegetables. Which ones do you want? And so on and so forth. So what do you think, what kinds of conversations do you think we're still avoiding at home or at work?
Well, we're avoiding a lot of conversations. And I think we don't know how to have difficult conversations yet. And it's very local. I think, again, I'm Spanish, but I live in Northern Ireland, and the way we communicate things very different. So there's a lot of sociological, historical, gendered, like there's a lot of systemic reasons that make us being uncomfortable. The conversation I'm more interested at the moment is, and I'm doing like work on that, is on masculinities. How can we have conversations about what is to be a man and the pain of men, the extremely real pain that men are having in this society, and having that conversation as part of a broader, real conversation of gender and their privilege. And I think at the moment, whenever we're having those conversations, it's either the men are the victims or the men are the predators, let's say. And how can we hold both truths? And how can we bring it back to the system? What are they getting from it? What, at the expense of what? What are they willing to give up in order to heal certain parts? And how can we have those deep, real conversations about how is this system failing you too, but also how is this system benefiting you at the expense of women?
Absolutely.
And how are we going to move both conversations forward, because they're the same conversation? I feel like we are moving forward and having more conversations about manhood, which I love. But I think sometimes we do it without zooming out and seeing the bigger pictures. So we see a lot of men saying, like, men are dying by suicide more, or the mental health crisis in men, or the way men are doing in schools. And it's like, great, let's have that conversation. And then let's put everything on the table. And then let's understand, okay, what is happening and what skills are we having in men, and why are we not equipping them with more emotional intelligence from childhood? And the way we role model friendships for them, or the way we role model relationships, or who are we praising how are we defining success for men and at the expense of what? And we're not going to be able to have everything. The reality is that something is going to have to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part that we don't want to talk. I am delighted. I actually think the solution of gender equality comes from that piece as well. I think we've done a lot of work in equipping women and empowering women and giving them permission. But because we're not doing the same with men, it's unbalanced. But again, we're not doing this with men because for men, it's still like a second sex thing. Like it's still embarrassing for a man to be associated with anything that is feminine because we still as a society perceive that those feminine traits, attributes, skills are second class, are good enough for us. And it's good for a woman to aspire to anything that sounds masculine. But unless we strip that away into, again, humanity belongs to all of us and how that does look like, and then we're not going to be able to fully move the needle. But again, I think some of these conversations, we're having them in a very scary and problematic way that might be well-intentioned, but might be recreating and bringing more gender inequality than the let's go back to the drawing room and do things better for everyone. So that is one of the big passions of mine at the moment, and where a lot of my juices and my anger and my joy, it's dedicated.
And it sounds so exciting. Unfortunately, a few years ago, I went back to the dating scene, and it was so scary to see that the gap is just bigger than it was before. And this gap has grown as much, I think, because most women have actually done their own inner work more than men have. When you try to find a match in that respect and you find, well, they haven't tried to get to know themselves, but it's not out of badness or in most cases, in my perspective, they don't know better. There's no role models out there that say, you should be doing more for yourself, and there's this societal pressure that you need to perform in certain ways, and you don't have time to be meditating or going to therapy or trying to second guess if what you've done is the right thing or not. So that gap is getting bigger, I believe, and I am actually writing a book about divorce, and I just find that the statistics are appalling. And when you think about how divorces are impacting families and children, it's just very scary. And I think this is a problem that it comes with, let's put a temporary tag and say unhealthy masculinity.
Yeah.
So I think I don't want to put it with that big marker, but it's.
But we need to be able to name it as well. I think sometimes people, I have conversations with men, I coach men, I work with men, I love men. Some of especially older men, like I have a lot of friends that are men in their 60s, and they look at me and say I'm like a crazy person, very angry, and they're in a moment of their life in which I can see that there's a maturity, I guess, in them. And I have lots of conversations with men, but if we spend all of our time telling not all men, this is not about all men, or whenever we talk about masculinity as a concept, men are hearing you, personally you, then again, that we can't keep moving on.
Yeah.
So whenever we talk about unhealthy masculinity, it's also unhealthy for them.
Of course.
Nobody's saying...
Because they are also the recipient of those judgmental...
But also they are struggling. But whenever we said toxic masculinity or traits, people, again, things, or read, or choose to understand, we are saying that every man is toxic. It's like, no, what we're saying is that the traits that this system has praised or has embedded or is inputting in men are toxic, both for men and for women and for the environment and for a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So it is broader than that. This is not about you are a problem. It's about there are problematic ways because the system has failed you. The system has also failed you whenever it told you, like, stop crying, be a big boy.
Yeah.
And whenever the system tells you that, you're going to achieve happiness and you're going to be successful whenever you drive this car, or whenever you are sleeping with this amount of money that look like this, or whenever you look praise from other men and you look status from other men, and all of those things are toxic. for men as well.
Yeah.
And it stops them from receiving the help that they desperately want and need. Men know they're not okay, and they feel like it can't be this, and I feel like I'm constantly running towards something. And it's very easy to use that pain and be like, oh, it's feminist. Yeah, your pain it's women's fault. It's because women are not sleeping with you. It's because women are not doing this. It's because it's very easy to tell them, oh, we see your pain and you're the victim and the women are the problem. I'm feminist and the women's growth and everything was better when women were submissive. But it's like, it's not true. It's just not true. And we need men to sit with that and to say, look, I'm not okay. What is happening? Am I fulfilled? I feel like there's a bit of hamster wheel. It's like, you need to get out of the hamster wheel. And they feel like, okay, I'm running very fast. I must be almost there. It's like, it's a wheel. You're never going to get there. Stop running. So how do we help them start by understanding, like, you two have been failed. And also, you are benefiting from some of the things. And the solution is not have more benefits. The solution is not, oh, how can you extract more labor from women? How can women care better for you? That is not going to be the solution. The solution is like, what do you need to do yourself? What is your impact? And also, they have a lot of power in the system.
Yeah.
They have a lot of access to rooms. They have a lot of just power. So how can we get them to understand that the way to use that power for their own benefit and for everybody else's benefit is by dismantling this system that is working for nobody?
Absolutely. And I think that we should have a proper, unique conversation in masculinity, because there's so much to be told, especially with me, like being a mom of two boys. It's like, right, okay, so I am aware that there's a lot of harm done, but what can we do to repair that or try to modify that for the future of my boys and obviously everybody? Because that will impact as well. As a mom of boys, I would think I will try to raise them in a way that they will be respectful to women and to respectful to other boys and other men and the environment and the animals and the plants. I mean, that's my best wish for all of us. But at the same time, I just say,
I think we're going to have a whole episode just on moms of boys.
I love that. I would love that.
The research and defensiveness of mothers of boys, I find that actually, I find more difficult conversations sometimes with mothers of boys than with men. I think men come sometimes to talk to me and mothers of boys feel like, you're telling me that my son is, I'm like, I'm telling you nothing. I don't know your son. I'm just saying that your son is living in this society. This is what society is gonna input, and this is our role, because somebody's out there doing the bad things.
Yeah.
Whenever we get the Epstein files, and they tend to be men. Whenever we see the statistic about who is doing crimes, mostly they're men. And those men also have mothers. So somebody is doing these things. So this is not about blaming and look at your son and be like, here's a potential rapist. What I'm saying is that let's understand what is happening, and then let's equip our children to be part of the solution and not of the problem.
Exactly.
From a place, again, of joy and compassion and excitement. I think we are shaping the next generations. We are creating leaders that will see things differently and won't have to unlearn it. But that starts by looking at the mirror and be like, we don't like it. But if we spend all our time denying a reality, then we cannot move forward with what else we want. What do we want ahead of us? And what is our responsibility as a mother of boys? And say, like, I have a boy and a girl. And what is my responsibility of this future man that I am shaping for him to be all of the things that I truly believe men can be, precisely because I love men, because I think they can be anything. They don't have to be this version. They can be absolutely anything. So how can we help them be all of the amazing things that we know they can be, because we see it?
We'll have to bring you back for an episode for that, because I have so much to say and to ask about that. So I love it. But I would like to talk about the feminist shop, because to me it's more than a shop, and I found it, as I said before, as a hub. And I found it as a community. I love the blogs. I love the amount of resources that you can find there. So I found many of those very appropriate for certain things that I want to say. And what gap were you trying to fill when you confined it?
Actually, the family shop is a bit of a bittersweet story. I think for me, I fell in love with the idea. And then whenever we saw that the family shop, the domain was free, it was like, it's a sign. And my husband loves e-commerce. Oh, that's what he works. He has an e-commerce agency and I work on obviously feminist. So we were like, okay, just
Bring it together.
everything that could happen. So for us, it was very important that all our products were ethical. And the way we saw it was wearable activism. So sometimes you wear a t-shirt that makes a statement and start conversations and people, just it's a very easy way to make people think. Sometimes in the train, you're like, oh, you get people smiling and you like, make a bit laugh. Or so all of these, and how did we do it in a way that obviously the garment was ethical and the model, so we print on demand because we don't want to produce anything, like fashion is such an awful environmentally business. So how do we only sell things, produce things that we've sold? There's no wastage. It's print on demand, so we don't even send it, like it just sends, so there's minimum carbon footprint, there's no plastic, all of those things. But we wanted to be a place to educate and get people together. So for me, books was absolutely key. We used to sell 500 books, and the amount of time I've spent into recommendations. So sex and dating, and here are some of the best books, or this is about intersectionality, this is about feminism, and Islam, for example, was a big one because people have these ideas of like, oh, so how do we educate people about, from the voices of Islamic feminists, about what is happening, about races, about consent, about politics, about anything. So we were splitting them by topics, even with kids' age. And we've tried to make the books part of the shop work for 6 years, and we had to stop selling books because people only buy books in Amazon and we can't compete with Amazon.
Of course, yeah.
So the reality is that, so we're trying to find a way to bring all those recommendations because the hard work is already done.
Yeah.
So just let people buy them wherever they want, but at least have an idea. Because as you said, sometimes it's like, I want to inform myself more into this topic. And then you look and it's like 7 great books about it already. It's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We also have blogs and we also have interviews with people, and we always have it's the same questionnaire. So we have a part about themselves and their project and their impact. But then we have like the same questionnaire, which is like, what is feminist for you? And when did you consider yourself feminist for the first time? And what recommendations you give to others? What's your call of action? So those kind of specific questions. And I love reading the different journeys from people to families and what it means to them. It's very different. It's all the same. And I always nod along and it's like, yes, that is feminist. But how we all explain it in a very different way and how it means different things. And I always like to ask them as well about their feminist victory. And it's about reivindicating the small things. I've started a club in my school and I did this. It's those things that make us proud. I made a difference. And again, none of them are like, oh, I dismantle single-handedly the party. You're welcome. It's always, I did something in my local community. I changed the mind of this group. I got 90 women together and we're doing a stand-up, whatever it is. And I think that gave us so much hope.
Of course.
I feel like whenever you work in social justice, it's quite glum sometimes. And it's just so many bad news. And this is happening again, and these cases, and the statistics. And I think just getting to hear from people that are doing things, it's just so nice. And it just reminds you why we do what we do. And we're not alone. So there's that. I used to write only or mostly for the Feminist Shop. And now I have a Substack. So every Sunday at 9 a.m., I send a post, and they tend to be about feminism. Sometimes they're about my chickens or my kids or something I've learned in therapy and I want to share it with the world. So they're very personal, but they're a lot about feminism. And again, it's about getting people to critically think or to share anger. Like, oh, I'm angry about this. There's, for example, the guy that proposed to the wife. And I was like, I'm angry about this. I want you to be angry about this too. I want you to be like, yes. And then the answer is like, everybody was angry about it. And everybody was like, yes, it was that. So I think having a place where I can share my own journey and my own reflections and just seeing people just joining in and or texting me like, oh, I didn't realize that, or somebody, oh, this happened to me, can you write about it? My friend, oh, I had this problem with the police, can you just please write this? I was like, I'll write this. So yeah, it makes me feel very, very privileged. But a lot of the things I can thank to the feminist shop. I feel like I always thought it was going to be like huge, because I was like, I love it. Why wouldn't you just buy from a family ethical business owner? And then it's sad when you're like, oh no, people will still buy those. And there's no a lot of money. So the family shop is not like, oh, this is super profitable, but it's something I'm so proud about.
I was going to say that at the same time, even if it's not profitable, I think it's been the gateway for many other things that might be.
But and also the conversations, the people I've met because of it, like the way I've learned about others, the having that hub, and you said hub is true, like, and I never wanted the family shop to be about me. I mean, the same way that my Substack is about me, I wanted the family shop to be everybody's. I want people to tell me, can you interview me? Tell me your story. Come on. Can I write an article for that? Yeah. I wanted people to have a space where they can share with others. And I want people to wear our products and be proud. And I remember I was wearing a t-shirt once of our own, and somebody was like, somebody I never know in a conference, they were like, oh my God, is this from the family show? And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I was like, yes, I'm the show. And we were having a conversation. So the fact that somebody understood, oh, that's the F of the family show, but I know what it means, and I follow them, or I've read these, or I just felt so proud.
Of course.
So again, if we can choose to measure success under capitalistic KPIs, and was this profitable? Can I quit my job and just do this? Or we can choose to use metrics of impact and joy and community, and that's what we have to do.
And I would hope that is how the world is going to shift too. It's about impact. Now, it's a very slow process, but I think we are starting to make a difference. And I think that's all about agents of change, is just show how it's not about, as you have mentioned a few times, it's not about the massive response, or it's about the constant. It's about fighting this apathy and say, okay, I don't like this, and I'm going to speak about it and joining. And it's about also finding a community. It's also about finding ways to not just rant, but to have certain impact. And I think that's very relevant. And I think that's one of the things you are here today, because I think it's not just about the books. It's the whole lot. It's your coaching. It's what you have to say in your Substack. It's what you have in your shop. It's what you have written in your books. It's the way you think, the way you parent. It's all that I can see that is so relevant. And I just wanted people to hear about what you're doing. And I think that is something I would like to end with, that forward-looking question.
Okay.
So there's a quote about Childhood Unlimited that says, if every carer, parent, and teacher read this book and truly apply these principles, we could end gender discrimination within a generation. That is like, just like, wow. Yeah.
I was so excited. I cried, to be honest. Whenever she sent this quote, I cried. I was like,
it's so powerful. And I completely agree, because it's about repeatability. If every single parent can just have this conversation, this could have read this and say, yes, it's about how do I switch my own thinking and my own responses to this. I want to ask, when you're managing the world that you're working toward, what does it actually look like?
oh, I think it looks like freedom. I think it looks like celebrating everybody's uniqueness. And I just think how beautiful would be if we can all tap into that potential that we have, how much we would all benefit. And happy people don't hurt others as well. So I think by creating this world that, again, is utopic, but I imagine, or I strive for, in which we understand who we are, and we accept who we are, and we celebrate who we are, and we learn to deal with difficult emotions, because even in this utopic world, they will be difficult, there will be frustration, and there will be sadness. But if we learn to do it in a way that it's healthy, and that is consensual, and that it's appropriate, I think there's nothing even in touch. Because again, the same way I feel like wherever I look is like, oh yeah, it's about feminists too. Anywhere I scratch is like, oh, here we are, good old gender inequality. And again, from a very intersectional point of view, but if we could erase that lens, the freedom.
What different would it be, right?
Mm.
And there's something that you would ask, or a small but meaningful action you think that our listeners should do?
I will ask them to just welcome the discomfort of critical thinking. Just that's it. Just be uncomfortable. Ask yourself a couple of questions. Just see where is your body and just go there. Instead of running away from whatever makes you uncomfortable, just go there and just read more or listen to someone or have a conversation. But just don't run away from the discomfort. Just be brave and courageous.
Absolutely. I love that. Absolutely love it. Virginia, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For the work you've done and for being an agent of change and to have the courage to challenge the system, and mostly for reminding us that change is something that we can bring it home and start at home, and it starts with everyday choices. So I love that. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it, and leave us a review. It helps these conversations reach the people who need the most. You can find Virginia Méndez Mason work through the Feminist Shop, her books, and her workshops, and we'll link everything in the show notes. Until next time, this is Conversations with Agents of Change, because change doesn't happen by accident, it happens through people. This podcast is produced by the Change Impact Group.